In September 1897, as Saint Thérèse of Lisieux passed quietly within the Carmelite convent, no outward sign suggested what was to follow. Her body lay still, humble and frail, yet an unseen presence seemed to gather, as if heaven itself leaned closer to the earth. Those who stood near her coffin noticed an unusual calm settling over the chapel. Faces softened, breathing slowed, and an inexplicable peace filled the air. Nothing dramatic occurred, yet many sensed that death had not silenced Thérèse, but rather prepared a moment of divine reply. As the funeral procession began in 1897, witnesses suddenly perceived a delicate fragrance spreading outward from the coffin. It was neither incense nor perfume. The scent carried the unmistakable sweetness of fresh flowers, arriving gently, without source, explanation, or human cause. Men and women halted, exchanging quiet glances of astonishment. Some closed their eyes in reverence, others whispered prayers. The fragrance intensified without overwhelming the senses, resting softly upon faces and clothing, as though the atmosphere itself had been reordered by an unseen, purposeful hand. This was not a fleeting impression shared by one or two mourners. Hundreds later affirmed the same experience, the same floral sweetness, the same sudden stillness, the same sense of holy interruption. Human explanation faltered, while something greater calmly asserted its presence. The coffin remained unchanged, sealed and simple. No flowers adorned it, no oils were present. Yet the scent persisted, precise and unmistakable. In that moment, many understood they were not witnessing sentiment or memory, but a deliberate sign surpassing human arrangement or expectation. Faces revealed the meaning before words could form. Eyes glistened with humility, jaws loosened, and hands folded instinctively. The fragrance did not distract, it instructed. It carried a quiet authority, communicating that the young Carmelite's death was being answered, not ignored, by God Himself. The surrounding space appeared unusually ordered, as if time had briefly paused. No movement disturbed the air. The sweetness lingered with restraint, neither fading nor swelling. Such balance revealed intention, not chance, marking the moment as divinely governed rather than emotionally imagined. For the faithful present, the message required no interpretation. God had intervened without spectacle, choosing fragrance over thunder. The miracle rested not in force, but in clarity, a gentle confirmation that Thérèse's hidden life had been received and acknowledged beyond the visible world. Thus, at the threshold between burial and remembrance in 1897, the scent of flowers became a language. It spoke without sound, declaring that sanctity does not end at death, and that God, unseen yet active, had unmistakably entered the moment. In the hours following the funeral in 1897, the fragrance did not vanish with the dispersing crowd. It lingered in memory and testimony, returning in whispered conversations among clergy and lay people who struggled to reconcile what they had calmly witnessed together. No one described confusion or fear. Instead, faces recalled the same composed astonishment. The scent had arrived without invitation and departed without urgency, leaving behind a settled certainty that something deliberate had unfolded, guided by a will far beyond collective emotion or suggestion. Priests present examined the setting carefully. No flowers had been hidden, no oils applied, no incense released. The chapel remained plain and unchanged. The order of the space itself testified that the fragrance emerged independently, defying every known material explanation available to reason. Witnesses emphasized how the environment responded. The air felt unusually still, the silence weighty but peaceful. Even restless mourners stood unmoving. Such alignment suggested not coincidence, but an external authority imposing harmony upon the moment, shaping both perception and atmosphere simultaneously. As accounts spread beyond Lisieux, the event was not embellished. It was repeated with restraint and humility. Those who spoke did so cautiously, aware that exaggeration would dishonor what had been experienced as sacred, precise, and wholly sufficient without theatrical description. This restraint itself carried significance. The miracle did not demand belief through shock. It invited recognition through clarity. God's intervention appeared measured, proportioned, and unmistakable, communicating assurance rather than spectacle, and leaving no space for human manipulation or emotional manufacture. For many elderly believers, the fragrance resonated deeply. It echoed biblical patterns where God confirms holiness through signs that comfort rather than overwhelm. Faces softened as understanding settled. The hidden obedience of Thérèse's life had been publicly acknowledged by divine initiative. The scent functioned as language rather than ornament. It carried meaning without imagery, instruction without sound. In that quiet communication, mourners perceived that God had not merely received a soul, but had chosen to answer grief with reassurance shaped perfectly to human weakness. No physical trace remained, yet the certainty endured. Testimonies aligned without contradiction, forming a unified witness. The absence of residue emphasized the nature of the act. Divine intervention leaves understanding transformed, not evidence to be possessed or controlled by human hands. Thus, the fragrance of 1897 became more than memory. It stood as confirmation that God acts gently but decisively, revealing His presence through order, calm, and unmistakable effect, allowing faith to recognize intervention without demanding visible form or force. In the years that followed 1897, the fragrance from Saint Thérèse's coffin was remembered not as legend, but as reference. Those present spoke of it with gravity, describing a moment when God confirmed holiness through calm precision rather than overwhelming display or fear. Elderly believers, especially women, reflected on the event with deep recognition. The sign matched their understanding of God's ways, firm yet gentle, unmistakable yet restrained. Faces carried assurance, as if the fragrance had quietly taught them how heaven answers faithful obedience. The church examined the testimonies carefully, noting their consistency and sobriety. No chaos accompanied the miracle. Instead, order prevailed. This harmony itself functioned as evidence, revealing divine authorship through balance, clarity, and the absence of human interference or emotional excess. In this event, God did not reveal Himself through form or voice. He acted through effect. The fragrance altered understanding, not matter. Such intervention aligned perfectly with sacred tradition, where God's presence is confirmed by transformation rather than visual representation. Saint Thérèse remained what she had always been, a witness, not the source. The miracle did not glorify her body, but the God who received her offering. This distinction preserved humility and directed attention upward, where the true cause of the event resided. For those who struggle with grief, the fragrance still speaks. It assures that faithful lives are not concluded in silence. God responds, sometimes not by changing circumstances, but by clarifying meaning, restoring peace, and confirming that death does not sever divine relationship. The memory of that day remains gentle, not demanding belief through force. It invites reflection. The miracle's strength lies in its restraint, allowing faith to rest upon recognition rather than pressure. and drawing the heart toward trust instead of astonishment alone. In the stillness surrounding the coffin, God asserted his role as active author. No symbol replaced him. No image confined him. His action was complete in itself, leaving human witnesses aligned, quieted, and inwardly convinced of divine involvement beyond doubt. Thus, the fragrance of flowers became a theological statement without words. It affirmed that sanctity invites response, that obedience is answered, and that God's interventions, though unseen, carry unmistakable authority when they reorder hearts, space, and understanding together. Saint Thérèse's passing in 1897 closed a hidden life, yet opened a lasting testimony. Through one gentle sign, God declared his nearness, his approval, and his power to act decisively, even in silence, leaving faith strengthened rather than overwhelmed.